very much for those of you who have joined this morning. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you giving up your time. As with all of these webinars, this is being recorded and it will now be added to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do, as you'll then be notified when a new video goes up there. And hopefully that will all be sort of educational and be beneficial for you and your club. So as always, I want this morning's webinar to last around about half an hour. The idea is to go over subscription payments in ClubV1. A lot of this will be stuff that you already know and are already using, but there might just be a couple of bits in there that you aren't aware that the system can do. And hopefully everyone that's joined this morning and everyone who watches the recording will gain something from this morning's session. So the agenda for today and what I want to cover, I'm going to go through simple manual payments in ClubV1. So that is you as an administrator in the office adding payments into ClubV1. I'm then going to go through members paying via the ClubV1 members hub. I'm going to go through the bill payment schemes and direct debit extract and also batch payments. Those three sections there, in my opinion, are the bit of the system that can make your life the easiest if it's used well. An awful lot of clubs don't use the schemes and the direct debit extracts, but hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll all understand how that works and how it can benefit you as a club. Then the final bit that I want to go over is how do I pay later? Some of you will already be using that, some of you won't. But hopefully by the end of today, you will understand what that's all about, how it can work for you as a club, and how your members can get the benefit of that as well. Okay, so let's jump into the simple payments in ClubV1. So your members can pay their subscriptions in many ways: cash, credit card, debit card, check. They can possibly pay off from their balance if they've got a balance in a purse. I will touch on that very, very briefly, and a number of different ways as well. As an administrator, you can make part payments or you can make full payments directly into ClubV1, and that is all then reportable. You can add expected payments manually if you need to. So let's say that you've raised your bill and a member comes in and says, well, I'm going to pay £250 now, and then if it's okay with you, I'll pay £250 at the end of January as well. If you agree that, you can set an expected payment and then you can manage it from there. You can use Moto if you've got Clear Accept to take payments over the phone. So that's mail order, telephone order. You can allocate the payment however you want to allocate it. So that is if you have multiple charge items, which most golf clubs do on their bill, you might want to allocate a part payment a specific way. So allocate it to union fees, for example. And then once a payment's been made, you can create and print or email a receipt. So let's jump into ClubV1 and have a look at making payments. So I'm going to go into my profile to start with. And I can see here that I've got an outstanding balance of £1,488.45. Okay, so if I've come into the office or maybe I've paid a bank transfer and you want to add this payment manually, you can do that by going to Finance, Bills and Payments, and then you can add a payment here. Excuse me. We click Add Payment, and we can add the amount of payment that we have received. We can change that receive date. So again, if we're going through bank statements maybe and someone's paid last week, we can just click on there, select the date that we've received that payment, manually type in the amount. So I'm just going to put £488.45. That is a part payment against that bill. The reference on this is going to be bank transfer if you want to. We'll look at Moto in a second, and then we're going to set media as bank transfer, okay? Because that's then going to allow you to report on how this payment has been made. Okay, we're not going to add to batch payment at this point. We're then going to continue through here, and it's going to bring up my outstanding bill with all of the different charges and how I want to assign that money. Now, what I may choose to do is, rather than do that, I want to assign it to my union fees. I want to assign it to my levy. And as you will see down at the bottom here, this amount is now adding up. So I've got £488.45 to play with, if you like, here. So I want to pay that off there as well for the locker. And then I have a remaining balance here of £350, okay? So I'm going to pay £350 off the subscription. So you are in control of how you allocate that money within a member's bill. We'll then click continue. We can then see exactly how that's been allocated and what's remaining. And as I mentioned before, we can create a receipt so that we can either print this off or send this to the member. So I'm going to select create receipt, and I've got the option there to print or email. If I email, it gives me my email template. If I print, that will just bring it up on the screen, which I'll do now. And then that is simply a payment receipt. Okay, so it's just saying that we've received this money on the 30th of November. There's the payment amount, and the bill that it's been paid against is not there, the actual bill number, but the receipt number's there, 721. Okay, so that can be emailed, and that's exactly what the member would receive as an email as well. Now, I'm just going to go back into here, and I'm going to add another payment. Now, what we can do on here is a member has phoned up. They've got an outstanding balance of £1,000. They're phoning up as we speak at the moment, and they want to pay £500. Okay. We're then going to take this as reference of telephone payment, and the date's already in there, but we might want to put it in again in there, although that's actually too long. So telephone for the 12th there. Okay. We then select Moto payment. Okay. We then click continue, and we go through the screen that you'll be used to seeing as administrators if you're already using ClearAccept. So we've only got the subscription to allocate that to now, the outstanding balance of £500, of £1,000, sorry, and we're paying 500. Continue through there, and we put the details in, but for our members, that should automatically populate. Continue through there, and then we put the card details in. So they'll give us their card number over the phone. We'll pop that in there. We'll put the expiry date. We'll put the CVV code and finish. And that will then create that payment for that member. Now, obviously, with this being an online webinar, as always, with it being recorded as well, I'm not going to put my credit card details in there, so I'm not going to complete that payment at this stage. Now, excuse me. When that member's phoned up, they've paid £500 of their £1,000 balance. But what they've agreed with you is, look, I need to pay this £500 now. I'll pay the next £500 when I get paid, maybe at the end of January. Now, what you need to be able to do at that time is be able to know when that payment's due and be able to report on that. So what we can do, we can add expected payment. And we say, okay, this member's going to pay £500, and they're going to pay that by the 31st of January. Okay, so we continue through there. How does that allocate? The same as before. Continue and finish. Now, what that's done here is that has created an expected payment on our record. So now, if I was to run a report for overdue payments on the 1st of February, and if this payment hasn't been converted to a payment, then it will show as an overdue payment. Okay. When we get to the end of January, or perhaps, towards the end of January, and a member has phoned up to pay because they're one of those members who are very honest and actually want to pay their subscriptions, we can just click on that expected payment. We can click convert, and that then converts it to a payment. And we say that they paid that maybe by cash, however they paid it. Okay, we click confirm, and that payment has now been allocated as cash, and their balance has gone down to £500. Okay, so that's as simple as it is for you to add manual payments in ClubV1. So whether you're taking the bank transfers, whether people are bringing in cash, whether they're bringing in checks, however else they may pay. You might have a credit card machine on your desk. That is how you would allocate those payments manually. Okay. Sorry, let me just jump back into the slideshow. So we've looked at part or full payments, add expected payments, Moto, we've looked at that, allocate the payment, however you want to allocate it to, and then create and print a receipt. Okay, so next we need to look at how members pay their subscription via the ClubV1 hub. So it's very, very simple. If I jump into my hub here, this is my account here. And if I scroll down, what I will see is I've got £500 left to pay. Now, I know this is going to cause me a problem because I don't think it's this bill. Oh, it is this bill. Okay, so I can come in here, I can click on this bill here, and I can click pay. Okay, now what I have on my bill here is I have staff gratuity and I have optional bar top up. So those of you who joined the webinar last week will know how to add those in. And now, because I'm paying online, I can add a staff gratuity payment of £10 maybe. I may do the optional bar top up of £100. Okay, so I can add that in. I then have the option down here of how do I pay by card, how do I pay later, deco, and then we have part payment here. Now, in all honesty, excuse me again, part payment is something that I personally don't encourage clubs to do, but I've got it as an option here just to show you that it is available if you want to make part payments available to your members. So if I wanted to make a part payment, I can click on there, and I've set a minimum of in my ClubV1, I've set a minimum of £150 as a part payment. So I could come in here as the member and pay 150. I could pay 200. I could pay whatever I wanted to pay. Okay. Like I say, I don't particularly like that, but that is available to you if you want to do it. In terms of how you set that up, if we go into ClubV1 and we go to settings, we go to online payments, and then we have here enable bill deposits. I've set that to yes, and I've set the minimum bill deposit at £150. Okay, so that is how you can set your part payments if you want to. It doesn't work across the board. You know, if you have a social member paying £100 a year, they're not going to be able to pay that £150. If you've got someone paying £200 a subscription, they could still pay £150, but why would they do that when it's 200? I personally, as I say, do not like part payments for bills, but you know your clubs much better than I do. You know your members much better than I do. And if that's something that works for you, that is an option there. If I just set that to no and then save down at the bottom, sorry, save up at the top even, there even, that is now saved so that I cannot take a bill deposit. So if I come out of here, go back into my hub, and I'll just refresh that, I can then go back into my bill, click pay, and now when I go in here, all I've got the option of there is pay by card. Okay, so now as the member, I can only pay in full. Now at the moment, that's £500. We may have those optional charges, but I'm not going to add them back in. Click pay by card, confirm my details there, confirm, and that is now wanting me to pay the full £500. That is what's outstanding on my bill. In an ideal world, your members will be paying that in full with their full bill once you've raised that bill. Okay, and that's basically how members pay within the app there as well. Excuse me, I do have a bit of a cold this morning, it seems. So I'm going to now come out of there. That's how our members pay via the app. Obviously, next year when this all moves into How Did I Do, it will look a little bit different, as you will have seen on the webinar already, but the functionality remains exactly the same. Okay, so that's how our members pay their bills. So now we're going to move into the payment schemes. Now, as I've said, this is one of the best parts of payments for me, and it's something that can really simplify your job in the office, particularly if you have monthly payers, whether it's direct debits, whether it's standing orders, whether it's just ad hoc payments of members coming in and having to pay cash or whatever you do, the payment schemes is going to help with that. So the first thing we need to do is set up the scheme itself and tell the system who the scheme is available to. Once the scheme has been set up, it's assigned to a bill, not a person. And that's really important because what we have to remember each time we raise our annual bills is we have to assign the scheme to that bill. So it's not something that just automatically rolls over because it's assigned to the bill, not a person. There's a couple of things we need to do to ensure that schemes are assigned correctly and that they work correctly through the process. And that is we need to mark the member as pay by direct debit. Now, we have that labeled as pay by direct debit. You may not be using direct debit for this facility, but for the system to work properly, they have to be marked as paid by direct debit, whether that's standing order, whether it's cash, card payments, whatever it needs to be. For the system to work properly, the member needs to be marked as paid by direct debit, and we'll come to that in a second. We then need to set the scheme against the bill. Okay. So I'm just going to jump back into my ClubV1. And I'm going to go to finance, bill schemes, payment schemes. Now, I've already got them set up, but I'm going to go through a brand new one for you. And it's basically just going to be a recreation of this, but that's fine. So I'm going to add a scheme, and I'm going to call this 10-month standing order, okay? Or 10-month installment plan, we'll call it. That's going to be over 10 months. If you want to add a surcharge, which in theory you shouldn't be doing unless you are FCA regulated, you can add a percentage of fixed surcharge. But as I say, in theory, if you're not FCA regulated, you shouldn't be adding a surcharge to your bills for your members. So I'm going to leave that at 0 for now, and I'm going to save that. That has then brought me into my 10-month installment plan that I've just set up. What I now need to do is tell the system what percentage of each charge item I want to charge when. Okay, so what we generally see, and it's not a rule, but what we generally see is that clubs will set their subscription at 10% each month. So as you can see, month 1 is changing there. So month 2 is 10%, month 3 is 10%, month 4 is 10%, and so on and so on. Okay, and that is the subscription sorted. Again, what we generally see is that clubs take 100% of everything else in month 1. However, it's not a rule. So you as a club generally have to pay your union fees up front. So it makes sense to collect them from the member up front. Okay, the levy, if you have a levy, I would certainly recommend taking 100% of that up front. You can take it as 10% each month if you wanted to, but the system will assign 100% of that levy at the start. So your members could be drinking away or eating away that levy before they've actually paid it to you. So I would always encourage the levy to be paid in 100% in month 1. Lockers, trolley stores, insurance and things like that, again, completely up to you how you want to allocate them, but generally, I say again, we tend to see 100% in month 1. So I'm now going to save that, and that's how I'm going to leave my plan. Just going to refresh that page, and then we can see that there. Now, as things stand, I can't use this this scheme anywhere because I haven't told the system who can have this scheme. So I go into manage categories here, and now I have to tell the system who is eligible for this 10-month installment plan. Now, that could be based on what their fees are. It might be based on your articles of association, your bylaws, whatever it may be. But I'm going to say that my Colts can all have the standing order scheme. My bronze members can't. Flexible members can't. Full playing can. 5-day can. Gold members can. Intermediates can. Juniors can't because their fees are going to be so low. We don't want that over 10 months. Ladies 5-day, yes. Silver members, I've allowed my gold, but not my bronze. Let's say that gold is going to be the only one who can pay by installments. Social members, no. Sponsors, if you have sponsors, and then obviously deceased and resigned, if you've got them as hidden categories, you wouldn't be charging them anyway. So that is all that my schemes are available to. Okay. So I click save down at the bottom there, and our scheme is now set up and available to use to any member in this category. So what I would now do, if I have raised a bill, which I'm not sure if I have at the moment, so I'm going to go into this profile of mine. Okay, so I have got a bill there. So what I now can do is go to scheme at the end here, and I can set a scheme against that bill. Okay, so I set what date the payment of the month will be due. So I'm going to leave that as the first. I'm going to set which scheme. And this is the 3 schemes that are available to me as a full member. And I'm going to go for my 10-month installment plan. And when do we want the first installment? So, for example, my club, we pay our subscriptions between February and November. So we get December and January off. Your subscriptions may run from April, and you will decide when you want that first installment to be. I'm going to set mine, just like my club, as February. Okay, so this is then telling me what the percentage of each charge item I'm going to be paying each month. So I've got my large locker, 100% of that in month 1, my subscription, 10% of that throughout each month. I'm going to then set that, and that is now set against that member. And as you can see here, it has now created expected payments for me on the 1st of each month from February through to November. Some of you may not see this as default, and that is because as default, expected payments aren't set in the filter. So your filter will look like that, and that's what you'll see your bill as, even though that scheme has been set. So if you want to see expected payments, just click on the filter there, click on expected payments, and that will then show all of those expected payments in this member's account. As I mentioned, though, the other thing that's really important if we're going to do this properly is we need to set this member as paid by direct debit. So we click on edit here. We drop down to finance. We'll have to put our password in there. And we authenticate. And then that takes us into this screen here. Okay, so I can, if I want to, put that member's account number in and sort code. So if I'm collecting a direct debit and I have a direct debit collection agency that's collecting that for me, or whether it's my bank, I can put the account number in here with the sort code. And this is the really important bit. Pay by direct debit needs to be set to yes. Okay, you can put in whatever reference you want to put in there. So it might be Berg Golf Club direct debit 001. Okay, whatever we need to put in there, you can put in there. Do we use the home address to bill that to? Yes, we do. And that is now set up. So I can save and continue through there. I can then jump through to preview and confirm and finish. Now, what that's going to do is when I now want to run my bills and do that direct debit, what that's now allowed me to do, if I go to bills, all bills, in fact, before I do that, that is now the scheme set up. So let's jump back into here. Okay, so we have now set that scheme up and we've said who it's available to. We have assigned the scheme to the bill, not to me as a person. It's been assigned to my in particular bill. And then we have marked the member as paid by direct debit, and we have set the scheme against that bill. Okay. Now, this is where the magic starts. in my opinion, using the direct debit extract. So this is the key to simplifying your life in the office, particularly if you have a lot of members who pay by installment, whether it's direct debit, whether it's standing order, whether it's just installment payments by cash card, whatever. What we need to do now is we need to run the direct debit extract. And to do that, we go into finance and bills, usually for a 1 month period. We can then select or deselect expected payments, and then we can download a report to send to your collection agent if you use one and if that's applicable. If you don't and it's not applicable, you just don't need to do anything with that report. So again, let's jump back into ClubV1. And I've come into finance, bills, all bills, and I'm going to do my direct debit extract up at the top here. Now, I am going to run my direct debit extract for December. So I'm going to run it from the 1st December to the 31st of December, just in case there's any discrepancies in there in terms of the date that we've expected this payment. I can then click continue, and all this is bringing up is one person who's going to pay their bill. In your case, you will have a number of members, and it will say, these are the members who need to pay this amount on the 1st December. Let's say that this was a big, long list of members, and Holly Allen, for whatever reason, we're not expecting this payment in December because she is a suspended member or something like that. We can just untick that and continue through, and that would take Holly off the report. Okay, obviously we don't want her to do that at this point. So we're going to leave Holly on there. I'm going to continue through there. And now we have the option to bring that report off, whether we want a text report or a CSV report. Okay. I'm not going to print that report for now because I probably haven't got details for Holly, so it's not going to really show much. But I'll come back to that in a minute. So that has now run that report for us. But what we've now done is we have told the system these are the payments we're expecting this month. We can then run that report if we need to and send it off to whoever's going to collect that money for us. And then that money is going to get collected or get paid manually. And then what we need to do is we need to post all those payments. Okay. So what we need to do now is we need to go into finance. In fact, I think I've jumped the gun again. So that has now done all of that within the direct debit extract. Okay, so at the moment, most of you will be sitting there going, okay, so what do we do with that now? How does that help me? That helps you when you move into batch payments. And that's where the direct debit extract has made your life easier. You know, for a lot of golf clubs, I speak to golf clubs all the time, and I hear of staff members, office staff, who will be sitting there inputting every single individual payment that you've received each month manually as a part payment each month. You don't need to do that. That would probably take a day, depending on how many members you've got. This process can simplify it and make it a 5-minute process for you. So what we now need to do is we need to go to finance, payments, batch payments, and add a batch payment. You'll select any payments that have bounced, and you can sort on any of the columns, and then you'll post all of those payments with a couple of clicks of a button. Okay, so let's jump back into my ClubV1. We've done our direct debit extract. What we now want to do is go to payments, batches, add batch payment, and then what we select here is DDs only. Okay, and then we select previous direct debit extract. And as we can see here, there's that one item, total of £130 from the 4th of December. So that's today. That's the direct debit extract I've just run. So hopefully when we go into this, that will be Holly Allen. And this was paid by direct debit, or maybe, again, if it's you doing this manually, it was paid by bank transfer, or it was paid by cash check, however it may be. But we're going to leave it as direct debit for now. Okay, we continue through there. And the system has brought in all of the payments that we're expecting in this month. Okay, so Holly, again, is the only one that we're expecting. If Holly's had bounced or we haven't received Holly's payment, we just deselect Holly and leave everyone else selected. And then we would continue through there, and that would post all of those payments. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do at this point, I'm going to add a batch payment. I'm going to go for DDs only. I'm actually going to do one that I've done previously. So I'm going to go back to this one here. Continue through here. And here I have a list of members who I'm expecting payments for. Now, for whatever reason, Oliver Henderson's has bounced. We just untick Oliver Henderson, and then we can continue through there. It tells us the number of items selected. We click confirm, and that is now going to post 10 payments all in one go. Okay, and that is the list of the 10 payments we're making there. And as you can see, Oliver Henderson is not shown in this list anywhere. Okay, so it's as simple as that. You go into here, you add a batch payment, you select your previous direct debit extract, and then you can untick any people that haven't paid, and so on and so forth. Okay, nice and simple, and it's going to save you hours if you're not already using this. Now, what you'll see here is all of mine have now got 0 as an amount to pay because we've already posted this apart from Ollie. Okay, so I can continue through here, it doesn't matter. It's going to post 11 payments, but it's not because we've already got 10 of them. The 185 is Ollie's outstanding, so we may have phoned Ollie and said, right, your payment's bounced, can you make a card payment? Yep, I can. Confirm that, and that will then post those payments. Yes, it's posted a 0 payment, but we don't need to worry about that. But Ollie's is there listed as £185. Okay, so that is how batch payments can work for you and how schemes and everything else work in between there. Okay, we'll jump back into my slideshow. The last thing that I want to talk to you about today is how do I pay later? Now, some of you may already be using how do I pay later. Some of you will know what it is and may have decided not to use it. And some of you may have just chosen not to use it. Okay, some of you may not know what it is. So we have fully integrated with Navuna through ClearAccept and a company called Deco. Okay, now how do I pay later works in a very similar way to Fairway Credit, apart from there are 2 main benefits. First one being that the club receives the payment within 2 to 3 working days of the agreement being reached. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Fairway Credit, the way that this works is this is a credit agreement with your member, but the club receive the money up front. So you will receive your full subscription from your members up front. Okay, and you will receive that member, as I've said there, within 2 to 3 working days of the agreement being reached. The other big difference between how do I pay later and Fairway Credit is that there are no set of circumstances at all where money can be reclaimed from the club. So if a member sets up the direct debit scheme with how do I pay later, and then they default on a payment and they don't pay, as a club, yes, you'll be bothered because that's one of your members who's not paying, but you've received their subscription at the start of the year. So it doesn't really matter to you as a club because as far as you're concerned, they're a fully paid up member of the club. The finance provider, Navuna, accepts all of the risk. So they will follow up with your members if they don't pay, and it will affect their credit rating. So realistically, if a member signs up for how do I pay later, pays 6 months during the summer, and then cancels it during the winter, they're not going to be able to sign up for how do I pay later again the next year. So they'll only be shooting themselves in the foot. There is absolutely no cost to the club whatsoever, but members pay an APR rate of 17.9%, which is comparable to Fairway Credit as they use a flat interest rate. Now, the difference with an APR rate is you can choose with how do I pay later, whether you're going to pay it back over 6, 10 or 12 months, and that will affect the total repayment amount. With Fairway Credit, you will have your subscription and then you will have your percentage rate, and it doesn't matter how long you pay that over, that's what you're paying back. Okay, so your members can choose to pay back to Navuna over 6, 10 or 12 months. Okay, and if I jump into the next slide, what I've got here is a quick representation of what that actually looks like. Now, as I've put in the top right-hand side here, these costs are representative, and I can't give a direct quotation, although I'm pretty confident they are right. Costs may differ slightly for things that are outside of my control. So this is not a direct quote. If you want to get involved and you want to look at how do I pay later, I need to pop you through to ClearAccept, who will organize setting that up for you. So if your subscription is £1,000 and your member choose to pay that over 12 months, they will pay 91.63 per month, total payable of 109.959, which is a total interest of £99.59. Now, this is a live calculator, but not in my slideshow. So I'm going to have to just come out of the slideshow here and go into it here. And what I can do now is I can double click on here and I can now change these figures and we can see what effect that has. So I can set 10 months for the £1,000 and that changes to monthly payments of £108.39. Total payment £1,083.86. So you can see the total interest there is actually decreased because they're paying it over a shorter time. If I change that to 6 months, then we can see again the total interest paid has come down again, but obviously the monthly installments have gone up because they're paying it over a shorter amount of time. Okay, and that is everything that I need to show you this morning. That has run over slightly. We're sort of 36 minutes now. I will now open this to questions. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them. However, if you want me to give you an example of what your subscriptions would be on this calculator, I'm more than happy to do that as well. So let me just jump into here and see any questions that may have been asked already. Okay, so if I go into the chat here, what is the card charge percentage for the club? So I'm assuming that question is related to members paying their subscriptions online. So ClearAccept standard charges are 1% plus 20p per transaction. However, they guarantee to meet or beat your current online payment rate. So if you are taking online payments already, ClearAccept can do a rate review and they can guarantee to meet or beat your existing rates on that. So their standard rate is 1% plus 20p, but they can meet or beat that. Are there any other questions? There's nothing in there's nothing extra in the chat there. In the Q&A, there's nothing in there either. So if you have got any questions, please feel free to ask them now. If you